Hey everybody, Dave Clark, aka the Pattern Guy. Hey, welcome to the Pattern Shop. Skip the Sunday again. It's Monday today. Been really busy in that, so I haven't had time to do too much. But I'll show you one real quick thing out here. I'm gonna do a little quick taping, and then we're gonna have a little bit of a lull. I gotta go make a delivery, so. Go make my delivery. I got a couple other things to do. I gotta stop over my mom's house, do something over there for her, and then I'll be back in the shop, do some work, and then I'll tape what I'm gonna do. Okay, but just wanted to show you what I got going here outside the shop, and what I picked up here. And then what we'll do is, like I said, we're gonna make this a little bit of a project, and I'll keep you guys up to date with it here. So here is the molding machine. All right, there it is. Okay, it's in the back of the Antichrist. Okay, it's an old Osborne, and before I started the tape, I should have got the model number. Actually, we can do this. I'm kind of leery of climbing up on there. Last time I did this, I cracked a couple of ribs there, but it's a 275J model. Okay, now this was actually built here in Cleveland, and Osborne is no longer in business, but new company bought it out, newer. I'm not sure when the takeover was and all that stuff. But new company took it over. They're still in business, so I can get all the parts for it and that. So I'm gonna try to what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this over to my buddy Blaine's house. He's gonna help me rebuild it. It's one thing he really likes doing. He redid the oscillating spindle sander, and I really don't have that too much time, so yeah, he's gonna do this for me. I'm gonna help him as much as I can too in that, but you know, while he's rebuilding this, what we'll probably end up doing is we'll head up to the foundry. We got to get the compressor going, because this is totally controlled by air power, so we got to get it going, and you know, let Blaine do his magic on this thing here. So I'm gonna go take this to his house. Like I said, I want to make a project out of this. Blaine's not too sure if he wants to be on camera or not in that, so at the very least what we'll do is he said he doesn't have a problem like taking pictures as he's going along doing this and that, so that's more than likely what, you know, we'll do is take some pictures as he's going along. We'll get a step-by-step photo gallery of this, and show you guys how he rebuilt it. So anyhow, I'm gonna go deliver this, and then you know, I take you along with me, but I don't have any way to hold stuff, and you know, being the old first responder and that, I don't think it's safe holding the camera while I'm driving. So I'm gonna drive over to Blaine's house, deliver it, go do a couple other things real quick, and then I'll meet you back at the shop in a little while. We'll do some more taping. All right, see you in a bit. Hey everybody, Dave Clark, aka the Pattern Guy. Welcome to another Chalk Talk. We're in the shop again today. Obviously we're doing a Chalk Talk. Okay. I noticed in one of the videos I was making the other day that I said a word that a lot of guys might not know. So like I said, another thing, you know, in the beginning I wanted to make sure terminology was correct in that. So it's really important, because you know, especially if you get to the point where you have customers and that, you gotta know what you're talking about, okay? So, and when you're talking to other pattern makers too, a lot of times, you know, I work by myself now, which it's kind of a bummer, because like when you're working in a shop, you get a new job, you can go over it with somebody. Like I said, my first boss, Bob, he basically said I could take, you know, the same drawing, give it to 100 pattern makers, and they're going to do something, you know, do it a different way, okay? So a lot of that goes to, you know, what's comfortable for you. I might be more comfortable turning something on a lathe, or another guy might be more comfortable on a mill. You know, he could just put a round table, turntable up on it and do something like that. You know, it depends what you're comfortable with, you know, and that a lot of times with that kind of stuff, you know, but it's you know, we'll get back to the terminology. You know, you got to really know what's, you know, happening. And with the terminology too, you know, my dad was from Wales. You guys met my dad. They actually had different names for different tools and that. So that's one thing with me. It's, you know, my dad would call a tool something, you know, the whole time. And then when it's like, what's this, you know? So that's one thing. And then different shops call different items different names to foundries, same thing, okay, but we'll try to generalize as much as we can. Get something where it's, you know, everybody's gonna say the same thing and that. So I just did a few things. What I'm gonna do today is just do stuff that you're gonna hear in the pattern shop a lot, not so much. It's the pattern and foundry will be integrated, but it's going to be more pattern related than the foundry stuff. And then one day we'll do some foundry terminology too. Okay, real quick, I got the molding machine. Okay, I started a video with that. Like I said, Blaine's not sure if he wants to be on video or not, but if not, what he'll do is he'll take pictures of it as we're going along in that, and I'll try to take some videos of it and that. So I got a video of it in my truck and that. We'll put that on the next video. You can see what it looks like. Okay, so while I was over his house, he had a few things there. So here's a job that he did really quick. It's nice little Corbacks, and I forget what, you know, I don't have the pattern to show you with this. All that he had with it. Okay, but this is kind of a neat example of a box because you can actually, it's got loose pieces because it's got what's called undercuts. Okay, so that's, you know, one of the terminology things I'm going to do today. I wrote a list down of a couple things we'll just go over, and like I said, this little list is like, you know, it's nothing compared to what, you know, all the terminology is, but this will get you, it's kind of the more basic stuff. A lot of it people probably already know in that, but I'm just going to go over it so that when you hear me say it, you know, you'll know what it is. So I wrote these down too so that I can remember, and I'll try to stay on track as much as I can. That's real hard for me to do here. So anyhow, one of the first things a lot of guys will say, you'll hear me say it too, okay, when you're laying out a pattern in that, you'll have different surfaces in that, okay, so you'll have a machine surface, or you'll have what's called an as cast surface, okay. So if it's as cast, or there are occasions, not many, actually it's getting a little more frequent now. You know, you'll have a casting that's all as cast, okay? So a lot of guys are trying to get out of machining stuff, which it's ridiculous in my books, you know, but they want to try to save some money in that, so they'll want as cast surfaces and everything. All right, so then the next thing I got on my list is, you know, one that we go over all the time, okay? So we have our pattern board. Okay, so the top is the cope. This one's the easy one. And the bottom's the drag. Okay? And then, like I said in the one video, we try to keep it PG, but you know, learning this stuff when I was younger, I worked with Owen and my dad in the garage, you know, in their shop, and you know, Owen just told me, because they just think you know, drag, it's the bottom, you're dragging ass, okay? So drag's on the bottom, cope is on the top. All right. Another thing we got, and I got a version of it right here, is we got core sticks. I turned these core sticks up the other day, remember? Okay, so what this core stick is going to do, that core stick enables me to make a core box, okay? So instead of like we'll take Blaine's core box here. So instead of trying to carve this all out in that, which would be ridiculously hard, you make the male of it, and these, I think I'll show you, we'll put a box around these, pour plastic, and there's your core box, right? Okay, it's way easier than have to try to carve these things out, okay? Alright, so there's the core sticks. Now the other thing we got, I should have left my board up here, okay? So we got pattern, okay? We got a hole through it. So we got at the end, we have the core prints, okay? And the core prints, once you make a mold off of this, this is what, these will be the core prints on this, and you'll be able to set that into the mold, okay? And then when we get down to the foundry, I'll show you a job, you know, where I set something in, and then we'll show you the casting after. These core prints, they're not going to be on a job, okay? This is a casting right here. That's it. So these are basically just going to be in the mold. You're going to set your core in there, and when that solidifies, you're going to bust the core out, and then you're going to have a hole. It's a good thing you're having a big stomach there. Okay, the next one, this is a term that I haven't mentioned yet, okay? And it's kind of important. Okay, so when I was discussing video a couple weeks ago, why we put pins and bushings on the flasks, okay, so that's for alignment, okay, when you put the two halves of the molds together, okay. So if I have a job here, let's say it looks something like this, okay, so down in the drag, I should have done this a little different, but say this is going to be the, I don't know if you can remember the oil pan that we made the other day, okay, so it's going to come out like this, alright, so in our, that's what our board will look like, okay, so this is going to be kind of hard to envision, try to do this as best we can. There's our flasks, okay, so this is going to be all sand in here, okay, alright, all the sand. So what a crush is say this, the pins and bushings are off, this goes over, so I hit something over here. It's like when the two halves of the sand mold's not aligning, and then you put them together and it smashes the sand, it ruins the mold, okay, so the mold will be ruined. That's kind of hard to demonstrate on here in that. Try to do the best I can. But it's basically when you're not aligned in the sand mold, you know, they touch each other and it disrupts the sand, you know, so it's a scrap. Alright, so another easy one. I should get a whiteboard and put a permanent board on here, huh? Okay, so this one's easy, but for the other guys, or for guys that are just beginning, okay, in order to get a mold off of a pattern, we have to have what's called draft, okay, so that's the angle here, alright, so that's your draft angle right here, alright, so, and like I said, that is determined by either the engineers or the drawing, or, you know, when you're making it, if for a customer, ask them how much draft they want to put on. Like I said, the taller you get, you know, the less draft you put on it, okay? And a lot of times, you know, if I'm doing something 6 to 12 inches, you say, you know, you roughly put 2-3 degrees on things mostly. So, you know, 6 inches to, you know, a foot, yeah, you might say I want 2 degrees, 3 degrees, okay, but then once you get something taller than that, then you get going by like the one foundry that uses, that I do work for, he'll say like, you know, put a 1/4 inch per foot or whatever, you know, 1/4 inch per 2 foot. Okay. Now the other thing, that one's the easy one. Okay. Now the other one is, that's your draft. Okay. Now, say that you have something and it goes back. Okay, so this is called backdraft here. Okay, and you cannot have backdraft, obviously, because the sand's going to get in there, and it's not going to, the mold's not going to pull off here. Okay, so that's backdraft. That's something you definitely don't. That's a pattern maker's worst nightmare is backdraft. Okay, so, and like I said, a lot of times what you do, pattern makers you'll see in the shop, you know, we always got the ruler in the back pocket. Okay. So these rulers are precision, you know, like what you can do. Hopefully you can see it. You know, here's a little pattern here. Here's a little flask pattern. Okay. So what I can do is I can, you know, just do a rough check. So I can see I got a ton of draft on there, right? Okay. More accurate, you take a square. Okay, but for a quick thing you can check out, right? And it's funny because when you work in a shop, you always see guys, you see the boss come out and grab a ruler and check to make sure what the draft is, make sure there's no backdraft on things. Okay, all right, so next thing is called finish. So the finish on your pattern, it's, you know, kind of the same thing is what I was saying with the as cast or not, you know. If I say I want finish on it, usually that means adding some stock for machining. Okay, so that's finish. Okay, so that's one of the things there. Okay, next one is a master pattern. Okay, should have got an example of a master pattern. Okay, but a master pattern is one that usually when you're going to do high production job, we don't make the pattern the finished equipment, the permanent equipment. Okay, we usually make that out of either urethane or metal or something. Okay, so in order to get that, what we do is we make a master pattern to get going on that. All right, and the master pattern determining how, you know, what metal we're going to make. Okay, you have to double shrink it. All right, so we could have, say, I've got a cast iron job that I got to make 100,000 cast iron castings. Okay, so my customer says, hey, I want an aluminum match plate for this. All right, so what I got to do is I got to figure out first is how much my aluminum is going to shrink to make that master pattern, not the make the master out of wood. I got to figure out how much that's going to shrink into the aluminum permanent equipment. Okay, so that's going to shrink. Well, then that aluminum pattern has to have shrinkage for the cast iron. Okay, because cast iron is going to shrink when you cast them. All the castings are going to shrink, right? So we have to do what's called double shrink. So we got to double shrink that. Same thing, like, I know off the top of my head, real quick, we use 9/32 for double shrink for aluminum pattern. So if I make our aluminum casting, so if I make an aluminum pattern for aluminum castings, we use 9/32 shrink. The other ones, I don't do too much, so it's not off the top of my head. Figure it out, or my customer will tell me to. Okay, so that's when you're making, you know, your master patterns. Don't forget you got to double shrink them. Okay. Another real quick one, and it's, you know, for when you're going over jobs in, you know, we used to do at Arrow, you know, when I first started working there, Bob, the manager, and Joe, the German guy, the foreman, they would code all the jobs, and then they would determine how they were going to be made. Okay, and every foundry is different the way you make jobs too. So when I was at Arrow, you know, I could have had a job where, you know, Joe comes out and says, hey, I want it parted here, you know, you want cores here, this, that, and other, I could take it down to another foundry, and the foundry's like, well, yeah, but I don't want to set this many cores here, so we're going to put the parting up here higher or whatever, and do, you know, you can do it a different way to do things differently. All right, so one of the things with that is the parting line. Okay, so your parting line is on your board will be, you know, these two surfaces. So when you put your flask around it again, right, you got your flask around here, put a little thing in here, you got all your sand in here, right? So you take the two flask halves, take your pattern out, and they go book together. This will be up here. All right, so that's your parting. And you can always tell castings, you look at any castings, it could be a sand casting, it could be a die cast, it could be a permanent mold casting. They're going to have some kind of a line all the way around it, and that's your parting, okay? All right, so another big thing we got to worry about in pattern making is shrinkage, okay? So we were just talking about shrinkage. Every metal shrinks differently. All right, so basically when you go ask your customer, I had one customer, they did steel and iron castings, and it bummed me out the one time I made, I think I made a iron, a pattern for iron, so you use an 1/8 inch. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, so I made an iron, or a pattern for an iron casting, so I used an 1/8 inch shrink, okay? So the next pattern that I made for them, I made it, and it was a big pattern. I think I got some pictures I'll try to show. It's just a big barrel. But anyhow, I made it for them and dropped it off. The foundry is about 2 hours from my house. Dropped it off. By the time I got home, the phone's ringing, and here was the owner of the foundry, and he goes, "Hey, what's going on with this pattern?" He goes, "It's not measuring up right." They had a guy to check them. Okay, you know, that's an important thing too. A lot of foundries, they'll have checkers to check the patterns out before they start casting them. You know, so anyhow, their checker was checking it, and he goes, "Dude, there's not a correct dimension on this thing." So I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, this is supposed to be this, it's this, and then." I'm thinking, well, it was all pretty consistent, you know, our drawings. I'm like, all set up, you know, I bet you I used the wrong shrink. So I came out in the shop, I had all my tools sitting on the bench. I'm like, well, there's 1/8 inch shrink rules. I said, you know, I use 1/8 inch shrink. He goes, well, that's what he goes, dude, it's a steel casting. So with the steel casting, they use 1/4 inch shrink. So I wasn't big enough, you know, so it was off a little bit. So, you know, kind of sunk. So you got to really be careful with your shrinkages. A lot of them I know off the top of my head in that. But, however, the other thing you got to watch too is, you know, I've worked for foundries that want 5/32 shrink, and I've worked for foundries that want to use 3/16 shrink. Normally we use 3/16. Most places do, okay? I had another guy, we did a lot of, the last job shop I worked in, we did a lot of stainless steel, 1/10, we used 1/10. So I did a job for a guy for stainless steel, I did it in 1/10, same thing. It's not right. I'm like, what do you mean it's not right? It's 1/10 shrink. He's like, oh no, we use 1/4 inch. Okay, so yeah, I always got to make sure, you know, ask what kind of shrinkage they want to use on everything, okay? All right, so then another one I always do, and I tell you too, especially down by me, this goes along with the foundry, you know, checking your equipment before they cast it, okay? Now, smart foundries, you know, correct way to do the job is to get the pattern made, take it to the foundry, run 1 or 2 castings, and, you know, make sample casting, okay? Now, I was talking about strainer housing the other day where, you know, it was 2 foot square, it had 144 cores in there. Definitely had to be checked out before you sent that to the customer. you know. So how they did that there was they cut it in like 2-inch sections so that they could measure all the inside stuff, you know. Some guys right away they'll send it to the machine shop, all right, and then the machine shop will come back and say, hey, look, you know, I gotta do, you know, we got a 1/4 inch finish up here. So, you know, I don't need a 1/4 inch finish. Just have the pattern maker take an 1/8 inch off here. Or, hey, I don't have enough down here. Have them add a 1/16 over there. Okay, so that's one of the ways guys do it. Actually, if I remember, I've got a job downstairs in my basement where it was a pretty complex job. If you guys know metal lathes, it was a cross slide for no, I'm sorry, it was a saddle terminology, right? It was a saddle for the lathe. That's what rides on the bed. You know, crank the handle, it goes back and forth. Okay, so I made a saddle. Pattern for a saddle. That was a really complex job. So I didn't have a drawing to it too, so I took all the measurements off of the casting. All right. So when we took it to the machine shop, it machined up good, but the guy that machined it, he's like, you know, yeah, there were spots where, you know, I had 3/8 over here, and I only had an 1/8 of an inch here, you know, whatever. So what I did was we went there went to the machine shop. I took the pattern with me, and then we marked off, you know, add a 32nd here, take off a 1/16 here, you know, whatever. So, you know, you'll run into things like that. So you always want to do a sample casting. And I tell you one thing, I started doing some work for this one foundry at one time when I first started out and through another customer, and they were looking for some pattern guys. So I made a few patterns for them, and one day I had to go there for something, and their engineer came out. I had to work with their engineer, and he brought my quote sheet out. Okay, I got a computer program with all my stuff on there. And he goes, let me tell you right now, he goes, on the bottom of this, put on there, you know, pattern shop responsible for the first casting. Because what had happened was they had, this place is a big iron foundry. They did bigger iron stuff. So they had a pattern shop make a pattern, and it was wrong. And it was the pattern shop's mistake, okay? Well, they just ran 80 castings without sampling them. They usually sampled them, but the customer wanted his 80 castings. They were way behind with the job, so the owner of the foundry said, "Hey, just run it. We got to get these out." Oh, the bad timing for that to happen because he ran 80 castings, sent them to the customer. They were all wrong, you know. So and then what they tried to do was they tried to make the pattern shop responsible for paying for 80 castings, and it was probably $1,000 casting, easy, you know. So that's $80,000, you know. So that's one of the things you got to watch out in this trade too. So on the bottom of my quote sheets, you know, I'm responsible for the first casting, and then actually, like with bigger jobs, my customers know too. I always tell them, hey, I'm the only guy in my shop, so before you run one of my jobs, have somebody throw a ruler on it, check it, because it's really easy. Like I said, it's really easy to paint yourself in a corner in this trade. It's really easy in this trade, and it's hard to understand. It's hard to explain, but what happens is I've been working on this cylinder job, right? And I told you how, you know, you always got to try to think a few steps ahead so you don't paint yourself in the corner. The other thing that's really easy with that, you think of a way to build a pattern, and your mind gets so etched in, I'm going to do it this way, this way, this way. And as you're doing it, it's not correct, but in your head, you know, it's ingrained in your head, that's the way it's got to be, okay? And you build it that way, and it's not right. You know, you don't, you know, a lot of times you really need to have another set of eyes look at it, and you know, you can see it. That's when I worked at Arrow. Joe, the foreman, he used to come in a half hour early every day, and he used to go bench to bench to bench and look at what you're working on. You know, I mean, there were numerous times I'd come in, you know, he'd be over by my bench, Cole, what you do? This is all wrong. You know, it's like, it's the first thing you want to hear when you first get in the shop in the morning, you know. But yeah, it was actually good that he did it, because then you could fix whatever you're doing. You didn't get too far into it, you know. So it's really hard. Like I said, it's really hard to explain. You know, you get into your head how you're building it, and you just do it wrong. So if you're doing stuff for other people, you know, foundries in that, and it's you know, something for somebody else, make sure it's right. Okay. All right. So you also want to do same casting and stuff. Okay. So one of the terms I said the other day, this is why we're kind of going backwards a little bit. I should have done this way in the beginning. All right. So one of the things, you have your backdraft, okay, and this is one of the terms I used the other day, this is where I decided I was going to do this little session here. Okay. If you watched the video on, man, I'm not sure which one it was, but, oh, I know. It was a video where I was showing how to set up for these split boxes, okay, where I put the 1/2-inch tongue on each side, okay, and I said that's got to be good. Okay, so I drew something similar to this, okay. So I said if you don't have, you know, 1/2 inch exactly, you're going to be here, so you can't have this. Well, that's not backdraft, because there's not any draft on there, technically. Alright, so what we call this little thing is an undercut. Alright, so you can have undercut. And it's not necessarily not a round thing all the time. What happens too is, this just another thing just popped in my head. Okay, so a lot of times when you mount a pattern to the board, okay, sometimes you don't say this is, you know, you got another half over here. So what I would do is I would drill a hole, pilot hole all the way through here, right? Or through terminology. I would drill a through hole, okay, and then you put a pilot hole up there, okay, and then you countersink these. Alright, so sometimes when you do that, the patterns don't pull all the way together. So you'll have your board, okay, and then your pattern is down there. So that's an undercut too. Okay, you could have an undercut where a lot of times you're sanding. That's why I said I got, here, make yourself a little block. Okay, so when you're sanding on the side of something, a lot of times what happens is as you're sanding up on your ends, what'll happen is they'll start kind of curving in because there's less resistance up there. Okay, guys, I know that was kind of like a basic, you know, thing for terms. Like I said, I probably should have done this from the beginning. And that's all. It's just basic one. If you actually hear me say something that you're not familiar with or whatever, just write it down in the comment section. Say, hey, what were you talking about? And that, I wasn't sure in that. So, you know, with that, I'm going to cut you loose. I'll get a video out this weekend for sure. Like I said, I videotaped the molding machine, so you'll be able to see that, and I'll try to get something else. I'm just really busy getting stuff going here. So. Anyhow, I'll cut you loose, guys. Everybody have a good one out there and stay safe.